YouTube, what's up? Welcome back to a new video. If this is your first time here on the channel, thanks so much for stopping by. Definitely check out some of my other videos, and if you like what you see, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe. Greatly appreciate it. Let's hop into the Wayback Machine, okay? And travel back to a simpler time. A much simpler time. April 21st, 1989, 35 years ago, the Nintendo Game Boy was released here in the States. I'm not gonna lie, I feel old just because, 35 years is a long time, and I definitely remember the release of the Game Boy. Game Boy definitely wasn't my first introduction into games, right? But I feel like the Game Boy is an important part of my life in general, just because I've said it before, I have an older sibling, an older brother, 8 years older, at that time, it was bad enough that girls shouldn't play video games, right? But my brother was just not having it. He wanted no part of me playing anything. And when I got my hands on my Game Boy, my brother didn't have a Game Boy, I had a Game Boy. It gave me a sense of independence, gaming independence. I didn't have to ask to play. Didn't have to ask my brother to play. I didn't need a television. No one could grab the controller out of my hands or grab the Game Boy out of my hands. It was all mine, and I could do what I wanted with it when I wanted to. So the Game Boy definitely plays a big part in my gaming journey, and it's definitely fostered my love for handheld games. So to commemorate the 35-year anniversary of the Nintendo Game Boy, I kind of just wanted to chat about 5 games. Now, I have a full list of 20, and I'll definitely do multiple parts to this video. But starting off, I wanted to just chat about 5 games that I feel like have really stood the test of time. Some of these games I absolutely adored as a kid. I love them, and going back to them and revisiting them, especially now, 35 years later, there's still so much fun to play. Let's start off with my jam. It's an old, I was about to say it's an oldie, but damn, all of these are oldies. It's an oldie, but it's definitely a goodie. It's Operation C. I loved me some Contra on the Nintendo, on the NES. I loved playing Contra. I loved playing with my cousin, who was a year younger than me. Whenever my brother and my older cousins kind of like went off and did their thing, went and rode bikes or went and hung out, did whatever they did, my younger cousin and I would play Contra together, and it was fantastic. Like, I definitely have a lot of fond memories revolving around Contra in general. Just that was like our go-to game, just because the two of us could play together. So Contra was my jam. Operation C was released in 1991, and to be quite honest with you, I have absolutely no idea what the narrative is in this game. I mean, to be honest with you, I didn't really play games, especially Game Boy games, for the story, right? I just wanted some action, and Operation C definitely gave you the action. This game plays just like you would expect a Contra game to play, but it's in the palm of your hands, which was the best thing about it. I do recall there not being a lot of levels in this game. I know for a fact my cousin and I beat Operation C back in the day, and I've gone back and beaten it, but I think there's like maybe 5 or 6 levels in this game in total. But what I love is the fact that, the game I think it's every other level. It alternates between like a top-down run and shoot type of deal, and then you have your side-scrolling shooter like you have in the original Contra. Majority of the gun power-ups that you saw in Contra, and even Super Contra or Super C, they are available in Operation C as well. I mean, again, just feels super familiar. So if you played those games, then you definitely know what you're doing when you pop this one into your Game Boy. There's a little bit of challenge in this game, not gonna lie to you. It's a Contra game, so come on, you know what you're getting into, right? But I absolutely love it. It's not punishing, but the challenge is definitely there. Not to mention the fact that it plays extremely well and still holds up 35 years later. It honestly does. Platforming feels good. The running and shooting all feels good. The enemies are spawning damn near all the time, but I mean, it's a Contra game. I tell you, like, whenever I feel like playing a Game Boy game, like 8 times out of 10, I'm actually gonna reach for Operation C, just because it's a dope ass game. Mario's Picross has definitely stood the test of time. Mario's Picross came out back in 1995, and at the time I had no clue what Mario's Picross was, let alone Picross in general. Never heard of it. I didn't actually start getting into like puzzle games like this, like P-Cross games like this, until I played the original P-Cross on the Nintendo DS. If you don't know what nanogram puzzles are, you should definitely look it up. But an easy definition that I would give someone is basically numerical crossword, right? Except there's no math involved. You're not doing math. You're basically using the numbers to determine what you should check off in order to form an image. It's kind of hard to describe, so definitely check it out if you're interested in like that type of puzzle game. Mario's Picross has over 250 puzzles, all right, and it's crazy. And I fire this up every now and again. I've beaten the game multiple times, fire it up every now and again, because sometimes I'm just itching for a nanogram puzzle. Like I just need to get my hands on some P-Cross. Now I will say it is a little bit more challenging when you compare it to modern day P-Cross games. It is a little more challenging. They give you a timer, there's a time limit, and it's a generous time limit. You get 30 minutes, right, to complete each puzzle. But there are a lot of puzzles and it just holds up extremely well. Some of you might be thinking, this is a puzzle game. How can you possibly go wrong? You could definitely go wrong with P-Cross games. I've played a few that I haven't necessarily liked, but Mario's Picross is definitely the foundation of these modern day Picross games that we know to this day. Like I said, definitely stood the test of time, and it's probably a good option if you want to, work out your brain a little bit. Bloon Kid is a trip. I love me some Bloon Kid. It came out in 1990. Now, I never owned this back in the day, but I definitely played a bunch of it because my cousin did own it. And then when I decided that I wanted to collect for the Game Boy, I definitely needed to have Bloon Kid in my collection. Now, I'm not sure if this is necessarily considered a sequel to Bloon Fight, game that came out on the NES back in the day that irritated the mess out of me. Oh my gosh, the game used to get on my nerves. But it definitely kind of has that feel to it. The cool thing about Bloon Kid, though, is that it doesn't seem like it's a pointless game like Bloon Fight did, right? Bloon Kid is definitely a platformer, and it kind of switches things up a bit. You play as this little girl and you have some balloons, and you can choose to let the balloons go and basically do a side-scrolling level platforming on the ground, or you can kind of do like platforming in the air. It's like a flying platformer, which I absolutely adore. This girl can float in the air, she can hover a little bit with her balloons. I just adore Bloon Kid so much. The levels get a little challenging, but there are some secrets in there as well, and it's like level by level, which I definitely appreciated a lot back in the day. 35 years later, and this is still a joy to play. Definitely has stood the test of time. I told myself I was going to, play for a little bit while I recorded some footage, and ended up spending damn near an hour with Bloon Kid. I mean, it's just so much fun. It puts a smile on my face. Those damn birds are always trying to pop your balloons, and it's so annoying, but I still love it. One game that I have consistently gone back to over time has definitely been Adventure Island 2, Aliens in Paradise. Adventure Island 2, Aliens in Paradise was released in 1992. And I gotta tell you, this is pure platforming fun right here, still to this day. Hudson Soft definitely published this game, like I think they published all of the other Adventure Island games. With this Adventure Island game, though, I gotta say, there's enough wacky and crazy stuff in here that definitely makes it stand out. Of course, you're throwing up axes. I think they're axes, but of course you're throwing them at enemies. But the strange thing about Aliens in Paradise is that you can get on like dinosaurs in this game. There's some skateboarding involved because of course it's 92, right? So you gotta add some type of like rad skateboarding levels to it, or intertwine that in the gameplay. It's just so much fun. This game is a blast to play. The platforming is top notch. Still to this day, I feel like this is one of my favorite platformers on the Game Boy. Just feels really good. definitely there are times where you got to be a little precise or else, you know, you're gonna die. But other than that, I mean, it's good stuff. I also do want to note that one of the reasons why I feel like this game has stood the test of time is because like the backgrounds in the game are extremely detailed. It's really crazy to see how detailed the backgrounds are. Venture Island 2, Aliens in Paradise is extremely impressive. It's such an impressive Game Boy game. One of my favorites, like I said. And it's crazy to think that this game has been out for so long. But even still, playing it 35 years later, you know, it's still extremely fun to play. The last game that I do want to talk about today is Castlevania 2, Belmonts Revenge. Some of you are probably like, really, Steph? I doubt that a Castlevania game on the Game Boy has stood the test of time. But I'm here to tell you that Belmonts Revenge, at least I feel, is the best Castlevania game on the Game Boy. Belmont's Revenge came out in 1991, and I just love the overall vibe of this game. To be quite honest with you, I think this is the best depiction of a Castlevania game on the Game Boy. The game still does have its problems. Like, one of my major issues with Belmont's Revenge is just how slow in general the character moves. But the platforming is still good. It honestly is. You still have everything that you would have in those original Castlevania games, not the you know, anything after Symphony of the Night. Those original, like the first 3 NES and even Super Castlevania a little bit. Those first 3 NES Castlevania games, I feel like Belmont's Revenge is kind of like their counterpart, right? The weapons are there, the sub weapons are there. Of course, you're still able to attack and do all that good stuff. And again, this is another game that I feel like it looks mighty fine on the Game Boy, even now to this day. So many years later, this game looks fantastic on the Game Boy. The soundtrack is also really good. It's just a combination of all of these things when it comes to like a Castlevania game that no one would really expect in a Game Boy game. They're all here in Belmont's Revenge. They honestly are. I appreciate that. I honestly do. Now, as far as the narrative goes, I have no clue. I don't know. And I don't even know if the game knows if it has a narrative or not. And I'm okay with that. You know, I'm all right with it. But just knowing that, you know, I'm able now in 2024 to pick up this game, play it, and just be like, wow, this is pretty awesome. I feel like it was a little underappreciated, especially, I don't know about during the time when it came out at release, but those Castlevania Game Boy games have definitely been, you know, marred with some negativity from us gamers, right? And Belmont's Revenge definitely doesn't deserve that. It stood the test of time. So those are 5 Nintendo Game Boy games that I feel have stood the test of time. They're extremely fun to go play. Even now, 2024, 35 years later, gotta play them. I would love to know what Game Boy games you feel have stood the test of time. Definitely let me know in the comment box below. I definitely got some other games that I want to chat about in future videos, so look out for that. As always, I want to thank all of you for watching this video, and I'll check you next time. Peace!